Hey guys, it's Noob49, and a lot of you guys were asking me to come out with more Battlefield 4 videos, and believe me, I'm gonna be playing more Battlefield 4. It just feels like it's a little bit old, and there's also a bunch of things that they still need to fix, and they haven't, and I don't think they're ever gonna fix it. And in this video, I'm gonna basically be telling you what I find to be wrong with Battlefield 4, and hopefully future Battlefields don't do this. So to start it off, most of you that have been at my live stream probably know that I call Battlefield 4 a tank warfare game only. They should have called it Battlefield Tank Warfare, because literally the flight vehicles play no role whatsoever to take care of the infantry on the ground or the tanks on the ground. They're absolutely useless, or rendered pretty much useless to do nothing to them. It's because of the amount of nerf that they put onto the helis and even to the jets that just literally make them absolutely useless in playing the objective. They're just there to fly around and just do a little bit of damage but barely do anything for capturing the objective. So some of you might say, why do I say that? And the reason is because, well, let's look at previous Battlefields and see what they did right and why we love those previous Battlefields as opposed to Battlefield 4. At least for me, the flight vehicles. When I got Battlefield Bad Company 2, I didn't get it because I want to run around and shoot people. I mean, you could do that with any other game, any first-person shooter. I got it because of the helicopters, and that's what got me into the game big time. And what did they do right about that? They had you be able to shoot properly with the guns. And when I say shoot properly with the guns, you didn't have this annoying limited amount of shots like you do in Battlefield 4. I mean, look at this. I just took 14 shots and I'm going to be out of ammo right now. Like, after taking these shots on this tank, I'm out of ammo. That's about it. I can't do anything else. I need to wait like literally what feels like an hour in game time just for it to reload so I can go for another run. It doesn't matter what you try to do to it. The fact that they limited the amount of rockets in the heli, it just completely nerfs the fact of even wanting to fly the heli. And then if you look at Bad Company 2 and what they did right with it, you don't have limited rockets, but you also have rockets that don't do that much damage to the tank. So it might take a couple of runs, but it also allowed you to circle strafe. Now granted, they did let you be able to circle strafe in Battlefield 4, but that's like the only thing they did. Let's look at everything they did wrong in Battlefield 4 to the helicopters, starting it off from day one, and how that totally affected the game even to now, even though that they made the helicopter be able to do barrel rolls, which is something good. That's taken from the idea of Battlefield 2. So to start it off, number one, they made it have limited rockets. You had a couple of different rockets. Zuni is probably the best, but either way, it's limited rockets. And the fact that it's limited isn't a great idea. Now, this worked in Battlefield 2. You had a high amount of rockets. You could use them as long as you wanted, but then once you're out, you had to literally go back to base and resupply yourself and then come back out. Now with Battlefield 4, apparently they tried to go for that, but they're like, wait a minute, we're just gonna make it have to reload in the air, which is literally another way of saying this is a nerf, but we want you to feel like it's Battlefield 2, which it's not. The other thing that's really terrible about the helicopters is everybody has a Stinger and Igla. Don't even get me started about how Battlefield 3, that was really hard to deal with. If literally 3 people picked up a Stinger and an Igla on the enemy team, they could make it hell for a helicopter pilot. And the only way for him to get past that is to go below radar and try to get past it so that they couldn't lock on as much or use his cover. In Battlefield 4, when it first came out, there was no below radar. So aside from the fact you have limited ammo, you now have no below radar. Granted, they did bring back below radar for Battlefield 4 now, which kind of feels like a little bit too late, but so we can knock that off our list, but the point still remains. Everybody still has an Igla and Stinger, so you do need to use your cover, and current map designs don't really give you that much height to hide behind things. I mean, look at me. I'm just trying to hide behind this mountain in front of me, and I'm still having difficulty with somebody locking onto me with a Stinger or an Igla. Now, Stinger and Igla is only skimming the top. It even gets really worse with the tanks. I'm not kidding. Anti-airs. Now, I get that an anti-air, a mobile anti-air, can have its heat seeker. That's fine. But the moment you put on active radar and another passive radar rockets, like, seriously, what is the point of that? That is just saying, hey, I'm going to let you guys be a complete noob at this game and dominate everybody else in the air. And it's literally just that. You just aim and shoot your rockets. That's all. You don't even need to lock on. And half the time, the pilot doesn't even hear it coming until the very last second, and even if they flare or use an ECM jammer, it's probably too late, and the heli is immobilized by being completely disabled. And it feels like they did this one model fits all. And in that sense, they made it so that the anti-air is really good against the jets, but extremely powerful against the helicopters. I mean, it kind of works against the jets because the jet has this immense amount of speed, so they can easily get out of danger and pretty much hide or go far back and not have to be attacked. But a heli is kind of like flying a rhino or a flying bathtub. It takes forever to get away from danger, so you need the cover to hide behind it. But when you got a passive radar and active radar locking onto you, it's a living hell. That was never needed. They did not need an active radar or passive radar. It should have never been put into the game. Heat seeker, fine, but passive radar and active radar, it is not needed. Let's not even forget the fact that jets even now have this passive radar and active radar. So literally what a jet pilot does is they just do like a flyby pass over. It's literally like a drive-by with the jet. You just do a drive-by past a jet or past a helicopter and just shoot your passive radar, active radar, and the pilot doesn't even have time to block it. So literally you're basically saying, let's make this game extremely noob friendly that takes no skill whatsoever, and anybody can play this game because it's an arcade game at this point. It takes no skill. This is breaking the game. I'm telling you guys, this is what makes the game boring and nobody wants to play it anymore. As opposed to using like heat seekers, which actually had to lock on and give the enemy a chance to like do something about it even after you shot the rockets at them. But let's go a little step further. As if having limited ammo was not bad enough, having terrible cover wasn't bad enough, and having the fact that everybody can use an igla and a stinger, and mind you, teamwork in a game makes a game far more superior than any other game, and somehow they decided to make it less teamwork based, and by that I mean you just need to have a stinger and igla and you're pretty much good to go, or passive radar and active radar. But teamwork based games, like let's look at Battlefield Bad Company 2, where teamwork was highly important in taking down a heli. How did that happen? You didn't have stingers or iglas, and your anti-air was literally stationary, but it really tore apart the helicopter, so your only option was to use your tracer dart to tracer dart the heli, and then have your teammates lock onto it with an RPG, and that was really the only way of taking it down if you couldn't just shoot ahead of the heli and make it hit the heli. So really, it took some teamwork to get the job done. And 3 stingers or iglas, like it was in Battlefield 3, was pretty much enough to wreck a heli or keep it back far enough so you could maintain taking the objective. And that's literally teamwork based. And as I was saying, as if it wasn't bad enough the fact that you have limited rockets, you have everything being able to lock onto the heli, and the fact that they just take it one step further and add even more armor to the tank is beyond me. Like, take this for example. Tanks in Battlefield 3 were able to have increased armor on their tank and also be able to use smokes to get away from the lock-on missiles that were coming their way. But guess what? They now have this thing where it can just pop on a green light, which is like a laser, and pretty much stops any damage taken. So if you were even to go for a heli run on a tank that is a lethal tank, he just needs to pop that and it's as if nothing you shot at him even did anything to the tank. Granted, I like the concept, but it's a terrible concept for a game that really didn't need it. Because you've nerfed the heli in so many ways possible that you just did not need that. Even jets have a nightmare taking it out. Let's look at the jet and how badly they nerfed the jet. You have to use a lock-on to shoot at a tank. There's no such thing as rocket pods. Might as well just say there's no such thing as skill-based shooting somebody. Let's just make it super simple, and even 12-year-old or grandma can play this game because all she has to do is lock on to the target. Passive radar, active radar, and lock-on missiles is all you need. And if you want to defend against that, just turn on this green-looking light laser, and nobody can take you out. I mean, honestly, at this point, like, what's the point of flying? Let's just look at previous battlefields and how well they played. Literally, the tanks, the helis, the jets, they all played a role for getting the objective. Battlefield 4 seems like the jets and helis are just there to fight each other in the air, and the tanks, it's just they do nothing to the tanks. Like, they have absolutely no role of fighting the tanks. And realistically, if you think about it, the way it was created in the past was that you had infantry on the ground, and when infantry got tough, you brought in the tanks because the tanks can push back infantry any way they needed to. And one of the best ways to take care of those tanks was to call in the helis or the jets, and the jets would generally be able to take care of the helis at the same time, fight each other, and it just became a massive battlefield. In Battlefield 4, it's literally, hey jets, you guys go fight each other in a corner over there, leave us us tanks alone. You two helicopters, because us tanks don't want to deal with you either. And it's a simple lock-on base game. That's about it. That's as simple as it gets. Now, another thing that they kind of did a little bit too much of was they introduced way too many guns in Battlefield 4 and attachments. Let's be honest, guys, for those of you guys who have played Battlefield 4, you probably have like one set of loadout on your gun and you never change it. You just put on this grip, this scope, and this attachment, and that's about it, and you don't even dare change it. Maybe you'll change the scope every once in a while, but you won't even dare change anything else, and that's it. You don't, and most of the time you don't even care about all the other guns, and that is a big problem to the game because they had way too many guns, and that caused a huge balancing issue with the game when it first came out. I mean, look at how simple Bad Company 2 is, and to this day so many people still say Bad Company 2 is a phenomenal game, and even I myself say it's phenomenal. It didn't have that many guns, it didn't have that many weapons, and it was so well balanced on the weapons because they could actually focus on them. And on top of that, don't even get me started about the fact that you had stationary anti-airs and you only had RPGs for taking care of the helis. And even then, you had to use tracer darts in order to have a teamwork factor of taking out the helis. So, do you see what I'm trying to get at here? You don't need stingers, iglas, and anti-airs with extreme amounts of lock-on rockets and all these type of fancy things, and tanks that can defend themselves without even having to use a smoke or get behind cover. It's just a simple, hey, let's just go arcadey. One awesome idea that Jonesy even told me was, instead of having this idea of having to reload in the air, why not make it so that certain flag points are reload points? Take, for example, that B flag would be a flag for reloading the tank ammo, and C flag would be a flag for reloading heli ammo. So you had to maintain those flags if you wanted that type of vehicle to always be able to reload and at the same time be able to reload back at base. I also feel like these maps were based heavily on infantry and not at all on vehicles. Like, there's no cover whatsoever for vehicles. If you design a map that allows helicopters to hide behind objects, these objects can also be used by tanks to hide behind them, like buildings or 3-level buildings or even mountains or hilltops, something like that helis can hide behind, but even tanks can hide behind. Look at Battlefield 2 maps. Anyway, guys, that pretty much sums up my points as to what I see is seriously wrong with Battlefield 4. It's the fact that it's just an infantry and tank warfare game. There has no purpose to the helis or the jets, and I think if they actually allowed those to be a big fact to their game, it just would help a lot. And they've added way too many things to the game that they just can't rip it right out of the game or nerf it to death, because then you'd have everybody complaining. So for future Battlefields, they should really consider the fact of maybe not doing too many nerfy things to these helis and jets. Anyway, guys, that sums it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. If you did, please do leave a like down below and a comment. Let me know what you guys think about what I had to say, or maybe even tell me what you guys think they could do to make future Battlefields better. And I will catch you guys later.